at 1,300 feet below. Please complete boarding procedures before getting in.
Roger that. Have a ton of tickets. Let's party!
For a bit of context, Metal Wolf Chaos XD is a remaster of the original 2004 release on the Xbox made by From Software. The Xbox wasn't popular in Japan, and so Microsoft partnered with From Software, known at the time for their Armored Core series, to show the Japanese what American freedom looks like. This cross-pollination of what the Japanese perceive Americans as, with the advanced technology of Japan, led to Metal Wolf Chaos, a game where you are the President of the United States, bringing back freedom to America by using a mech. However, the game did not sell well, and worldwide localization was cancelled due to the game being too realistic, since US citizens at the time were losing their freedom due to the Patriot Act. So, Metal Wolf Chaos remained a Japanese exclusive until a remaster was announced at E3 2018. The setup is basically this. Coup d'etat forces led by the Vice President have taken control of America. Lady Liberty's last hope is Michael Wilson, the 47th President of the United States of America, and his staff member Jody. Equipped with a Metal Gear, the President wages war against the terrorists to bring freedom back to America. We can immediately tell that this is a cool and goofy premise. The Metal Gear even has a cool name, Metal Wolf. The first couple of missions, it feels like every other line is some stupid cheesy joke, and we will experience how silly it gets. The game handles well with keyboard and mouse, but some of you may feel like the sensitivity is too low even on max. I understand and prefer it this way, because you're handling a mech, not a soldier hooked on methamphetamines. What does feel awkward is switching your weapons. You have to press the middle mouse button to bring out your loadout, then cycle through each weapon using the left and right mouse buttons, then press the middle button again to select them. It does feel dated compared to using a weapon wheel or numbered keys, but it matches the actions happening with your mech to bring a nice touch of immersion to make you feel like the President of the United States of America. Nonetheless, switching weapons will take some getting used to. Once we've made our way to the underground system, we learn that destroying things can give power-ups, health, and a weapon if it's a weapon crate. The act of destroying also increases your blaze meter, which allows you to do a rampage attack for maximum chaos. We'll see the implication of encouraging destruction later. For now, Jody gives us a neat piece of advice.
Whoa, something quite dangerous awaits. But with missiles of that caliber, if you aim and fire, you should be able to easily shoot them down.
Using our newfound knowledge, we clear out the soldiers and escape on Air Force One.
They were ever invited. They're definitely...
Michael! Richard!
Mr. President, it looks like this party is just getting started.
You may have noticed that Jody's dialogue didn't finish with the Christmas card list sentence. This could have been played off by the Vice President calling out the President, but there are multiple occasions where the dialogue doesn't finish. The remastered version kept all the English voiceover, so this was likely a problem that was never fixed, or additional subtitles were written after the lines were recorded. After beating a mission, we get a codec call with some really bad facial animations and weird music that feels so out of place.
Jody, how's my schedule look for today?
You've got a conference and dinner party at the Japanese embassy regarding wildlife protection.
Oh yeah. Sorry, but I'll have to cancel that. I'm heading out to save America. Can you let them know I won't be able to make it?
Yes, Mr. President.
Sometimes the music overtakes the dialogue and makes it hard to hear about justice and freedom. Given how this game has been so far, this almost feels like it's expected. These mainly serve as a way to update us on what's going on in America. After certain missions, there's also a propaganda news broadcast as well. The first broadcast goes over how this isn't a coup, but a revolution to fix America's problems that have stemmed from domestic terrorism, fossil fuels, and immigration. Led by totally not high Richard Talk, the US military overthrew the old government, and now Metal Wolf must be smashed to rid America of evil. Also, martial law will continue until then. Our next stop on delivering freedom to America is San Francisco. Before each mission, we get a little debrief on what the situation looks like. There's even a call name for each mission with a cute drum roll before it.
Metropolitan Recapture Operation from Cisco Sighted Road.
San Francisco's mission call name is Metropolitan Recapture Operation from Cisco's Chisato Road. Now, Jodie pronounces Chisato very oddly, like someone just slapped her ass to tell her a good game while she was talking. So, I got curious on how this word is actually pronounced. I figured that it might be a real road that's well known in San Francisco, but all of the results are porn. Literally porn. Is this a deliberate joke from the developers? Did they bank on someone getting curious on how to enunciate Chisato and look it up almost a decade later? It doesn't refer to any real place, so I can't think of any explanation for this. We now have the option to bust a loadout in the garage with a variety of toys. But all of the weapons suck except for the bazookas, machine guns, and the assault rifles. However, in the mid to late game, machine guns will perform better than assault rifles. The only downside to bazookas is that the missile sometimes becomes a missile and doesn't damage what you're aiming at. This becomes a lot less noticeable with the higher tiered bazookas as they fire more than one rocket and do more damage. But in the early game, especially in Alcatraz, you'll notice how bad it can get. Now you might be wondering, why are all of the other guns bad? Handguns, shotguns, grenade launchers, and flamethrowers are mostly only good for killing soldiers, which die easily with anything and are not a threat. You can just stomp them too. Missile launchers are rather slow and need to lock on to be accurate. Sniper rifles require you to stand still to fire. Railguns take too long to charge. And finally, multi-missiles deal a low amount of damage. You can use the money and rare resources you collect from missions to buy and unlock more weapons. Unfortunately, you can't upgrade them if you have a favorite. You can upgrade your mech by collecting energy cores, but this only affects its stats. You can't change mechs nor choose what stats are upgraded. This is rather a shame because From Software is capable of it from their Armored Core series. There is definitely room for improvement on customization, upgrading, and balancing. Anyway, our entrance into San Francisco delights us with this one-liner.
That's quite a gentlemanly landing, sir, befitting only of a U.S. president.
The gentleman in me goes off the clock at 5 p.m.
After laying waste to part of the city, we're introduced to prisoners. They give an extra bonus to the money earned after the mission, with scientists giving a bonus to the amount of rare materials gained, and musicians unlocking soundtracks. Quick question, how do you think we rescue these prisoners while we're in a mech? Well, like any good American, we use our guns to solve our problems, and so we shoot at them. Then we're met with the cable car, a proud symbol of San Francisco that anyone who resides there will tell you about. While we're at it, the city looks like it's in need of a trim. Eventually, we burned our way to the enemy's headquarters, in which we are encouraged by Jodie's lust for bad boys breaking buildings to destroy it. Busting down their HQ, that looks like a parking structure, ruins the military's will to fight. The military becomes so distraught that they can't find parking for work, and so much so that they send a tank equipped with a gas cannon that phases through buildings. Kill the boss who isn't that hard, just a bit tanky, then finish up any remaining target areas to see the fruit of your actions.
The enemy forces in San Francisco have been annihilated. Nice work, Mr. President.
Sure.
All in a day's work, huh, Mr. President?
Nope, we've only just begun. The fight will continue. As long as the America inside my heart is still alive.
This is so enjoyably stupid, and I love it. It's all in the name of freedom. Afterwards, we learn that there are sympathizers to the president's crusade of freedom who are using an Xbox 360 mic.
We are seeking volunteers to oppose the coup d'etat forces. Awaiting response from fellow sympathizers.
The sound quality is terrible.
We also get another news broadcast.
Dear fellow Americans, good evening. This is an announcement from the Government Policy Promotion Department, where the password is overflowing love and daily benevolence. Today, we bring you a most unfortunate bulletin. Last evening, the city of San Francisco suffered extensive damage at the hand of Metal Wolf, who suddenly appeared.
I mean, they're not wrong. We did just level a city in the name of freedom, except we're not in the Middle East.
In addition to slaughtering unresisting citizens, this heinous terrorist took citizens hostage and made an unjust demand for the release of violent criminals and the sum of $500 million. This vicious act could easily be the worst in U.S. history.
Okay, we did shoot at unresisting citizens. We're encouraged to destroy things to get ammo, power-ups, and weapons, and to shoot at POWs to get bonuses. The news network spinning our actions to fit their narrative is a very cool way of the developers turning the game's mechanics against us for the story. It would be even better if we had a choice of shooting to free the prisoners or using a safer way and have the news network try to spin our actions accordingly. And the same thing for destruction of going wild or minimizing the damage done to the city. What I like about these news broadcasts is that they're excellent parodies of the propaganda shown in some American news networks. Keep in mind that this game came out in 2004, and yes, this is more clearly seen today, but this type of news has been going on for decades. Although I will agree that it has been getting worse over time. The arguments that the broadcasts bring up have hints of truth, however, once you think about them for just a moment, then it all falls apart. For example, with the prisoners, why would he kill and ransom simultaneously? He can't get money if they're dead, and it's not like they're in a standoff where killing them puts tension on the military to do something fast. And the demand to release violent criminals sounds so much like what they would do to scare old people. The cherry on top is that the reporter starts crying to the point where they have to cut the feed. Then they call Metal Wolf meaner than Satan himself for the Christian viewers. The rest of the broadcast is just rallying Americans to fight together against Metal Wolf. There are a few things that I want to talk about. What does the D in DNN stand for? Dictator News Network? The prisoners have a very deep and mangled voice that makes it hard to hear what they're saying. They're saying help, but it's like they have a toad in their throat. What is the military doing to these people? Is it like the vocal cord virus from Metal Gear, but instead of dying, they sound like they've been chain smoking since birth? Is this how they keep the prisoners from spreading the news on how the military is holding Americans hostage? Also, there are these little memoirs by the DNN reporter Peter McDonald's that come after the missions and before the Kodak news broadcasts. I don't talk about these because they don't make sense to the player until after a certain mission near the end. Not to forget that they contrast with the broadcast and what he says during the game. We'll talk about them more when the appropriate time comes. To add on to the realism, we get the perfect response that an American president would give.
How about seeking exile or asking for help from other nations?
No. I'm the president. I can't be the one to start a war in this country. I'll be the one to wage the war.
Mr. President.
Before starting the next mission, there is a crucial tip that I need to tell. Some people experience this problem with the San Francisco mission, and others, like me, with this mission, Alcatraz. When reaching a loading screen by either finishing the mission or failing, the game will freeze on a black screen. I could not force the game to close. It blocked the mouse from interacting with any other window, and using the arrow keys and tab to navigate the task manager didn't work either. To fix it, I had to play the game in windowed mode, which seems to work for other people as well. It seems that if you get this issue on San Francisco, then it's an issue with your drivers, which you might be able to fix by either updating your graphics card, changing your power plan to max performance, setting the game to run on your GPU, or setting it to windowed mode. A user named PowerMad found that if all else fails, then it might be your controller, in which the user recommends plugging the controller in after starting a mission. I haven't seen this occur anywhere else except for the San Francisco and Alcatraz levels. Instead of a prison, there is a giant cannon on Alcatraz Island, which the US Army is aiming at the west coast of the United States. Of course, the DNN frames it as Metal Wolf trying to seize control over the cannon to fire at America, despite that the cannon is already charging and aimed at the west coast. Alcatraz introduces us to one out of the 2 timed missions in the game. This wouldn't be so bad if the hit detection on the structures wasn't so awful, because you'll waste a lot of time from this. It's still doable to finish in time with being able to decrease the cannon's charge, but it's still frustrating. One weapon that seems to work more consistently with the hit detection is the flamethrower, making it the only time that it's useful. Luckily, this seemed to be the only mission where the hit detection is this shitty. There's also this problem where the helicopters would get stuck on the geometry. Speaking of helicopters, you can see the DNN chopper which you can shoot at. It doesn't lead to anything story-wise or in the broadcasts, making it a missed opportunity. Its only purpose is for an achievement requiring you to destroy the chopper 10 times in the same level. Another additional feature are mines, which is pretty much the only danger that we have to be wary of. They actually deal a significant amount of damage compared to the pitiful amount that the enemies do so far. If you fail to stop the cannon in time, the madmen will actually destroy the west coast, while a poorly delivered line makes it impossible to take it seriously.
Metal Wolf, if you shoot, I'll hold it against you forever! Get us out of here!
With all of this destruction caused by both sides, it makes you wonder that maybe the president and the coup d'etat forces are both terrorists. The military even uses suicide truck bombers. Managing to make it to the cannon, you'll be met with a Hellgas soldier. He's not much of any threat, but he does drop the energy version of the MP7. Destroy the cannon, the blame is shifted onto Metal Wolf, the US military are heroes, and the resistance is growing. Why am I summarizing so briefly? It's because the game starts to die down at this point, and doesn't introduce much goofiness again until halfway through the game. We don't get any news broadcasts until then too. It becomes formulaic, leaving the gameplay to bear the weight of keeping the player entertained, which I will admit that the gameplay doesn't have much depth to it, and it's rather easy. Some of the missions try to incorporate verticality, but it's very shallow as it doesn't add much to the gameplay at all. But the maps are varied and feel distinct even with the multiple downtown levels. The mission objectives are also varied, but not as distinct as most share the same formula, just with different styles of destroying stuff or defeating a boss. Before we do a Cliff Notes summary of some of the missions before getting back to the good stuff, we're treated to learning what the meaning of happiness is.
Mr. President, I haven't been this happy since that supermarket going out of business sale, when I was searching for my favorite candy and I found the last box all covered in dust at the back of the rack. And the expiration date was still good.
I know the feeling, Jody. Brief me on the next battlefield.
Sure, Mr. President.
We go to Beverly Hills to destroy bombs throughout the city. The only thing here to talk about is how the DNN reporter comments on what's going on, but their news chopper never moves from their starting position, so they wouldn't be able to see what's happening. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that in the mission data, you can see the upcoming map and enemies so you can format your loadout accordingly. Honestly, it doesn't matter that much, just bring a set of machine guns and bazookas and you're good to go. In the Grand Canyon, this is the most platforming and verticality usage that we get. There's an easy boss fight where the hardest part is getting through the harsh audio when he dies.
Sir Richard! I'm sorry!
I wonder what anyone sees in the vice president. Hurry up and move ahead!
Ironically, there is a bug where the audio stays dampened after a cutscene and fixes itself when Jodie talks again.
And take a gander at the heroic dive down to the Colorado River.
The defense strength is high against live ammunition.
I assume that the cutscene didn't have a trigger to bring the audio back to normal once it ended. This mission is the first time that I experienced the game stuttering, which will happen several more times throughout the game. It gets pretty scary as you don't know if the game will crash or not. One thing that I will give this level is that both you and the enemy can shoot the platforms underneath each other, which will cause the victim to fall to their death. Afterwards, we get a tender moment.
The enemy has been annihilated. Finally, peace will be brought to Arizona. War really doesn't suit these lovely surroundings.
Jodie. Nor someone as lovely as you.
Sure, whatever. Nice work, Mr. President.
Anyway, is this another Bill Clinton moment? We get a brief revival of silliness in Phoenix where the game brings a bit of a challenge. We meet 3 other Metal Gears who bully you with a bukkake of missiles that stun-lock you like a giant dad build.
Whatever.
I have not died yet, besides failing the Alcatraz timer, and frankly I didn't think that it was possible given how little damage the enemies do. For clarification, there are no difficulty options. My first and second deaths happened here, which you get an achievement for your first. This gives the impression that the game is hard, but it isn't, besides for 4 difficulty spikes, including this mission. Although this game did come out in 2004 and did not have achievements back then, so this is something added in for the remaster. Despite all of this, there are only a few missions where the boss fights have any urgency or any persistent threat to them. This is not one of them. They seem to bug out when you have distance on them, which makes them easy to cheese, and they even get stuck on buildings. They don't make any effort to hunt you down, so you could just have a standoff way past high noon. You might as well clear out the level of collectibles before fighting them and build up your blaze attack by destroying objects. The President of the United States of America has an odd moment after defeating the trio where he humbles himself. It's the only time, if I didn't miss any others, and we don't count him hitting on Jodie, where he shows any other side of him that isn't his fanatical pursuit for delivering freedom to America. Any other time, he's boastful of what he does because he's the President of the United States of America. Also, if you want all of the power cores from this level, you'll have to play it twice, since the mission ends immediately when all of the mechs are killed, and each one drops a power core. Later, we get an update from Jodie on the resistance forces. They've forced the coup d'etat forces out of the West. It would be nice if we could get a news broadcast of them saying that the rebels have pushed the US military out of the West, So we need you to invoke your Second Amendment right and bring citizen justice to these hooligans, or anything that shows the resistance making an impact than just coloring in the map and telling us that they are. Oh, and Jody makes a playdate with the president and the resistance leader. We're also treated to a very cool cutscene.
Metal Wolf. Planning on wiping out New York this time? You enemy of the people, I, Richard Hawk, won't let you get away with it. I, Richard Hawk, will uphold American justice without fail.
Yeah! Suck on my missile punch! Get up!
I won't lose. And the reason is Richard Hawk am the last great American hero.
How do you like me now?
Let's rumble. Eat my flame of justice.
He got me!
Justice is always victorious in the end. Long live the USA!
To sum up the broadcast, the vice president made a fake video of him beating Metal Wolf, and covert operations have arrested Metal Wolf supporters. But I would like to add on that he killed multiple US helicopter pilots and possibly other US troops and US civilians, along with wrecking a part of the city. The fake video and covert operations caused the resistance movement to cease and their leader to vanish when they needed him the most. The president disregards the resistance people's possible deaths as imposters, says to believe in your own justice, which doesn't seem to include justice for the homeless people that the military killed to frame as the resistance, and that he is the president of the United States of America. Once again, I wish that we had something to gauge the impact of the resistance, because the pictures in the broadcast are of the US military. From the point of view that the game gives us, it seems that Metal Wolf is doing all of the work. Given how the news broadcasts lie, them talking about the resistance could be to scare citizens into complying with martial law. The resistance could actually just be that one guy that found the president's phone number and is either a coup d'etat spy or a prankster. We get an idea of how badly freedom is lost in America in one of Peter McDee's memoirs after the Western Town mission. It tells of how Richard Hawk has gone full CCP. Oh, sorry, I misread. He has gone full CRP by seizing all private property, trafficking US citizens, or using them as lab rats. This is the vice president's eugenic wet dream. Keep that phrase in mind. Skipping ahead a bit, the Miami mission debrief says that the military is trafficking 1,000 citizens a day into white slavery. Initially, I was not sure why they put white slavery in here. It sounds like a white-collar or blue-collar job type of thing, but no, white slavery refers to the Europeans that went into slavery, spanning from the Romans to the Ottomans. There is a little snippet in a Wikipedia article about it, which has a modern definition of people forced into sexual acts and forced labor with a less of an emphasis on the race of the victim and the perpetrator. I could not find much of any examples that use the term white slavery that doesn't refer to white people being enslaved. The closest I could find was this article about the expansion of human trafficking for forced prostitution in the early 20th century with a focus on Jewish women. I could not find a Japanese specific definition for this term either, so I am inclined to believe that the developer's intention with this term is that the US military is trafficking white people into slavery overseas. This is also supported by Peter McAdee's memoir stating that this was Hawk's eugenic wet dream. First, this would not fly under the radar in America, especially with 1,000 people a day. Second, why? Are they not trying to get the people to be on the military's side against Metal Wolf? Was their plan to ship thousands of white people to Antarctica and say, why is Metal Wolf doing this? All the humanity, not the white people, anybody but them? Like, what is this? I'm assuming that Richard Hawk is white, so is he racist against his own race like he's Uncle Ruckus? Is America's Florida men really dragging the country down that much that they feel the need to get rid of them and this is the time to do it during a coup d'etat? Was this just to drive home the game's central message that freedom is dead in America? The game slows down in its goofiness again until later, but for now we arrive at Houston. It's here that we see the worst of the bosses, the Olajuwon. This boss is no threat at all despite it being a giant airship that sends down paratroopers and rockets. I ignored it to clear out the level of collectibles like it wasn't even there because honestly it felt like it wasn't. If anything, it's a set piece that you can destroy. When it came time to do that, I could stand still and shoot rockets without worrying about dying. One good thing about the downtime that this mission brought is that I can finally hear the music over all of the explosions. My first impression of the music while playing is that it's just generic rock and jazz to fit America's theme. A lot of it, like 90% of it, is hard to hear over the bombastic gunfire, explosions, dialogue, and poor audio balancing. It is rather difficult to judge it from only playing the game, which mainly seems to serve a purpose of making sure that there is never any silence in order to keep up the tempo of the gameplay. So I listened to the soundtrack on its own, and it's actually pretty good. Some of them remind me of Dynasty Warriors tracks, a couple are not so good, and a few embody the spirit of American justice in the game. There are only a handful that I recognize being in the game, so either the others were cut content or they could not be heard over anything else. I really wish that they put more of an emphasis on the music to empower the player on their crusade of freedom, because there are some genuinely good tracks. Not all of them, of course. Some don't fit the game at all, like most of them on disc 2, but the music could have played a much better role at the front of the stage. Afterwards, we can't get a hold of the resistance leader while the president expresses his unrelenting desire to meet this guy. He claims that's because he made a promise to meet him, but that was never made. If anything, it was a promise to himself, since the resistance leader sent the message to meet up via voicemail that we have not seen the president respond to unless Jody called him off screen. Once again, we still have no verification that this guy is who he says he is, which could be a potential Chris Hansen moment for all we know. Next stop, Chicago, where Richard Hawk has set up military structures releasing poison gas to kill everyone. This feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, not just from the premise, but Richard Hawk's dialogue too.
Copy that.
Well, if it isn't the heinous terrorist, public enemy number 1.
Richard!
Oh, you've done excellent work, Michael. How about a reward to show my appreciation? Poison gas will annihilate the city in 5 minutes. And Metal Wolf will be blamed for the slaughter of Chicago. Have a nice day. Or not, Michael.
He could, kill everyone with the gas immediately, or with any other method, yet he waits for Michael to arrive to start a gradual release of the gas, with just enough time for Michael to stop it. It's like a Batman and the Joker situation, where they're just fucking with each other for the thrill of the action, although not literally. Also, I would imagine that the gas would dissipate before the toxic levels could be reached, especially with how we're taking out the dispensers one by one disregarding the fact that blowing them up would release all the gas at once. Using poison gas is also ironic because Chicago is known as the Windy City, even though it's as windy as any other city. Not to forget the fact that the military structures are pumping out the poison, which we already know that the DNN is going to spin it as Metal Wolf trying to gas the city, even with the news coverage of him destroying those structures. They could make a valid claim since destroying them would release the gas, but the blame would truly be put on the military for being so incompetent for putting poison gas containers in their defensive structures. Back to the gameplay, we get to highlight how much of this game likes to cut to mini cutscenes and from dialogue to dialogue, both of which feel really jarring. Of course, this is a lot more prominent if you're speeding through the level. There is a cutscene of, oh no, the drawbridge is opening and you might not be able to cross the river to blow up the last poison container, oh no! So I got curious.
Velocity will exceed 181 ppm. Please hurry, Mr. President.
It seems that Jodie forgot that we can glide. She also neglected to mention that if you go down the riverside, there's another bridge that allows passage. This bridge doesn't look like the other drawbridge, so what's the point of the drawbridge if this one doesn't open? This all feels weird, and it could have been solved by having the military block off or destroy the bridges so that we would have to glide over. After the mission is just Jodie telling us that citizens continue to be oppressed. But in Peter McDick's memoir, we get a cool line of, God is made of steel. In Miami, we ruin the military's vacation. We get to see the mines make a return since Alcatraz, which shows that this game could use more environmental hazards. It would at least force you to play around these obstacles to spice things up, and there was somewhat of an attempt in this mission. In addition to the mines, there are bombers that swoop in to blast their load onto us, but I didn't notice them while playing because they posed no threat. The drawbridge opening in Chicago is a good example of using more than just enemies for conflict, yet it feels like how we discussed previously. Not much else goes on into the boss cutscene. We learn that apparently no one knows who is inside Metal Wolf. What do they all think happened to the president? People saw Metal Wolf jumping out of the White House. The mech has the presidential seal on it. The person commanding the battleship is the president's former commander. Certainly he would know about the mech and recognize the president's voice if his voice came out of Metal Wolf. The vice president knows that the president of the United States of America is Metal Wolf. Couldn't he have used that to tarnish the president's name, especially earlier when the DNN could easily frame him? Anyway, destroy the battleship, the former commander goes down with it just for his ego, and we learn that the people are thinking of revolting. Yes, thinking. Apparently they don't have enough time to make a revolt, as it didn't fit into everyone's schedule. This brings up the question of who comprised the initial resistance group. You would think that it was the citizens, since the US military is under the control of Richard Hawk, unless it was a small part that broke off. The only rationale that I can think of is that this is the beginning of a new resistance, where it's more widespread due to Richard Hawk increasing his oppression. Speaking of increasing oppression, the spider boss is the second difficulty spike and one of the only bosses that felt like a threat.
Talk about massive arm. What is that? Carnival ride?
Hello, Michael. How's life treating you?
Richard.
What do you think of my cute little pet? Thanks to him, the people of New York City are right now festively running around and trying to escape. It's like a big old carnival. It's like Mardi Gras in New York or something.
You are a sick...
Take a bite from its super energy wave phaser. It'll get you high enough to reach heaven.
Richard!
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
It can potentially one-shot you or at least take out half of your health from its giant laser, which you can deactivate by destroying its energy supply. It also has increased defenses from the target areas, providing energy to its electromagnetic armor. This is a good attempt at having the player avoid the boss, since it's actually a threat and forces them to be more tactical by ducking around buildings to avoid getting killed. I said attempt because in like any Soulsborne game, strafing around the big enemy works wonders, allowing you to skip blowing up the energy supplies. The increased defense doesn't matter a whole lot since by this point you could have maxed out one of your weapon types, and it's not like the mission is on a timer. I like the attempt though. Later, we get an announcement from the DNN about those who support Metal Wolf will be killed, along with basically anyone within 1 degree of that sympathizer. Oh, and also, we love Richard Hawk, who we get a call from.
Richard! Poor Michael. Left all by your lonesome.
Richard! What changed you?
Michael, America has gotten too fat for her own good. These incapable pigs are eating this nation alive. The death of these freeloaders, leaving only the capable behind, will help me create a new nation.
Richard, you...
Oh, and Michael, I forgot to tell you, but your presidential staff, those backstabbing idiots, well, I've decided they can die too.
You!
If you want to help those pigs, come to Liberty Island and watch those worms wiggle in vain. See you when I see you, Richard!
It turns out that the vice president wants to cut the bloat out of America's bureaucracy. He didn't have to terrorize the citizens. He probably would have gotten a majority support if he did this peacefully. And by kidnapping his staff, he just means Jodie was captured. With tensions high, lives on the line, there's only one man who can save the day. Liberty Island finally feels like the game's charm is back since the fake video. But we do have to address some things. The president's staff betrayed the President of the United States of America? From what the vice president said, it sounded like the staff betrayed the vice president, not the president. So who betrayed who? Peter Macca's memoir after the DNN's broadcast of killing all within 1 degree of Metal Wolf sympathizers mentions how that decree forced Jodie to stop helping the president. So Jodie wasn't in some secret hideout and did not try to hide those close to her? Was she just chilling on her couch this whole time working from home?
And the reason is, I'm the President of the United States.
Mr. President, don't come near. It's a trap!
Hey there, Michael. Are you still playing the hero?
Richard!
You just don't get it, do you? Freedom is dead! You and your men and this symbol of freedom will all perish!
Regardless, we're met with the third difficulty spike since this boss is a damage check. It was also the first time that I felt like I had to mix up how I played from dealing as much damage as possible to prioritizing defense by blowing up missiles.
Stop right there!
When getting more footage, I discovered that you can blow up parts of the tank. The resistance leader alludes to it, but my autopilot destructive brain must have ignored it previously. The point still stands that this boss is a damage check. However, with the ability to blow up the tank's cannons and damage its tracks, the fight becomes a lot more manageable. Also, I didn't have to change up how I played. I can still focus purely on dealing damage by targeting the tank's cannons first. Before we get back to my original thoughts, I also discovered a little extra dialogue if you fall off the bridge. Of course, it's text only, but it's still neat. Now back to the past. Although, the threat isn't to you, but to Lady Liberty and Jodie instead. This is until it starts moving.
Round 2! This wild dog of war is on the move, Michael! He'll bite you if you don't move it! Now hightail it out of here. Oh, I almost forgot. Time for my afternoon tea. Nothing like sipping some delicious Darjeeling tea and watching you getting your clock cleaned.
There's not much else to the fight, besides that we finally see the Resistance doing something. They ride up to defend Liberty itself, and we finally see that the leader isn't 3 children in a trench coat. They're actually helpful too by eating missiles so that Lady Liberty can stand another day. But it's okay, because they don't die since they claim to be trained in escaping a tumbling helicopter rocked by a rocket that's not that far from the ground. Hell, even the leader gets shot down if he can't beat the boss before then.
You all right? I managed to escape. But, Mr. President, the only one who can protect the Statue of Liberty, our lives are in your hands.
So we know that he's dedicated to the cause. Sadly, his escaping breath gets cut short for no reason, and no, I did not skip or edit it. Once we beat the boss, we're treated to a very cool cutscene.
Yeah! Take that! Ah! How do you like me now?
Now he's ready for the scrap.
Mr. President, my boys were successful in saving your princess. I'll connect you.
Mr. President? How can I ever...
Jody,
Yes?
sorry to be late.
Mr. President,
From the skies above Liberty Island, this is DNN's Peter McDonald reporting. To viewers in America, make that the world. Did you witness the truth reported to you live on DNN? Did you witness Vice President Richard Hawk's dreadful nature revealed? As I have been stressing all along, Metal Wolf was the truly righteous one. While the world may have doubted you, I always believed in you. Thank you, Metal Wolf, and thank you, Michael Wilson.
Whatever.
Okay, we have a lot to unpack with Peter Mickey D's here. And if you're wondering why everyone now knows that Metal Wolf is actually the President of the United States of America, I'm not entirely sure, but I'll waive that detail just like the game does. So he turns coat, rightfully so, as Richard Hawk has become too deranged for even propagandic fanatics. But the thing that stumps me is him saying that he always believed in Metal Wolf and stressed this point all along. We have proof in his memoirs that he believed the lies fed to him about Metal Wolf. Even when he is shown to be in the wrong, he still lies to save face. These memoirs also finally make sense that they're written after the events of the game because he's trying to rewrite his past. If we want to paint him in a good light, then fine, the memoirs are him trying to correct his mistakes. But I don't think that he has that integrity in him. He has blatantly slandered Metal Wolf this entire game, despite seeing the true events unfold in front of him. I cannot believe that he was fooled into lying, but I would believe that it was done out of fear for his or his loved one's safety, until now when Richard Hawk is losing his ground. I would also like to take this moment to say that I appreciate the Vice President's voice actor, Jeff Gabbert, and whoever wrote his lines. They're the best part of the game. It's like its goofiness at its peak. Mr. President forgives Jody, and we head back to the White House. This level takes us through the White House's underground bunker system while showcasing every mechanic within the game in their own dedicated section. They could have had at least one spot where they throw every mechanic together to have like a big chaotic destruction moment, but we don't get that. We could have just landed on the White House lawn instead of penetrating through the bunker, although we probably should clear out the area. The layout seems like it would be maze-like, but it's just a ring with a central connection point, so it's not that hard to navigate. There's nothing notable here except for this cutscene.
Gas is being released.
Once every target area is cleared, we head for the surface. An unforgiving sight befolds our eyes from seeing the White House turned into the Fight House. This is a peekaboo fight where you have to blow up the cannons that poke out of its turtle shell. Theoretically, you're supposed to be careful of not damaging the White House and only hit the shell enveloping it, hence the 2 health bars. Yet I didn't bother and shot freely with quadruple bazooka power. The White House survived the quad explosions, and of course your experience may vary, but as long as you don't purposely try to blow it up, you'll be fine. Afterwards, Richard Hawk has gone into hiding with the CIA being unable to find him. Not a second later, the Resistance says where he is. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to find a mech on the run, especially someone as recognizable as Richard Hawk. I guess that it could make sense if the Vice President sabotaged the CIA's ability before he ran, so that's why the Resistance found them first. Yet I can't help but feel that US taxpayers are getting shafted if a bunch of newly formed rebels that broke apart then reformed again can do better than the CIA. You know, now that Air Force One is requested to get to Las Vegas, how did Metal Wolf get replenished in fuel and ammo until now? It's a goofy video game. We're not going to find a concrete explanation. For now, we have to ensure freedom for America by taking down Richard Hawk.
Richard, come out!
Oh, Michael, you're so sweet.
Richard!
And for that, I owe you. You canceled all my dreams and plans. So now I've got a nice little present for you. Here! Let me ask you one last thing. What do you want on your tombstone? What do you want it to say, huh, Michael?
The initial fight against the helicopter and tank only serves as a way to deplete your health before facing the Vice President. A neat detail is that you can blow up the bridge underneath the tank, but a not so nice thing about the helicopter is that the weapon that it drops is too high to pick up most of the time. You'll have to jump up to this elevated platform and glide over to pick it up. The Vice President is another boss that poses a challenge and the last difficulty spike due to his damage, a lot of health, and mobility. The first phase takes place in a slot machine room. I noticed that assault rifles didn't do any significant amount of damage, but my bazookas could, yet his mobility made him hard to hit. So this makes it the only time where I had to tailor my loadout to the mission. And no, the Liberty Island mission doesn't count since I was changing up how I played, not my loadout. If you recall from near the beginning of this video, machine guns are one of the best weapon types and they'll do well here. Phase 2 gets a bit easier since he doesn't maneuver around as much, so feel free to use your bazookas here. But the emotional damage that he hits us with when this phase starts is the real challenge to prevail through.
Richard, you can run, but you can't hide. You coward!
Coward! Michael! You gonna complain? He's a coward. I can't win. So shoot me, Michael. Or are you a chicken?
I know that's rather simple, but I appreciate how the boss fight is just shoot to kill and not some gimmick that we have to do to beat him like some other games do for the main antagonist fight. Although this probably was kept simple due to its short development time. Phase 3 is the hardest, with Richard becoming hawkish by unleashing his whole arsenal. If you happen to die, it does this abrupt cut that seems like another part of the fight that's about to happen, but it's just the death scene. It even abruptly ends too, with Richard not finishing his line.
Michael! Looks like you were fresh out of justice tonight, eh? Could you look after me from...
I would say that this is one of the better boss fights of the game because of the decent challenge, and mech-on-mech fights are fun. Once you show Richard a taste of justice, we're met with a cutscene that brings freedom to an astronomical level.
It's over, Richard.
Like hell it is.
That's the space shuttle.
You can't chase after that. Hey, Mr. President! Mr. President? Mr. President!
Ah!
That's pointless, Mr. President.
Nothing is pointless. And the reason is because I'm the president of the great United States of America. Yeah!
Mr. President!
Jody, I'm gonna step out into outer space. See you soon.
The President of the United States of America checks in with Jody, and for some reason this is when he decides to reschedule the Wildlife Conference. Despite being in space, currently fighting a madman and the nation recovering from a coup, he confirms the Wildlife Conference. Now he can definitely do this because he is the President of the United States of America, but I can't help but feel betrayed. His mind isn't 100% on freedom and justice for the American people. Who does he think he is, Theodore Roosevelt? I guess considering that Richard now has Space Marines at the ready to scorch America, defeating him would count as wildlife protection.
Of all man's achievements in the 21st century, this is the climax!
After all of this hype, you'd think that we would have a cool level going into maximum overdrive, but unfortunately, it's an elevator. There are these parts where the ceiling closes, but the elevator stops, so it's not like you have to destroy them quickly. The only thing would be the timer, yet there's so much time on it that you could take a break, come back, and still have plenty of time. This level sucks. Since it takes away all of the destruction, there's nowhere to go. It's on rails just going upward. At least there's Richard Hawk to look forward to. There's also this issue at the top where the Space Marines get stuck in the hallway and can't fight you. So some of the build up to the last fight is lost unless you want to rephrase it as a calm before the storm type of thing. We finally meet Richard in his final form.
What do you stand for, Michael? Be certain now. As certain as the blood gushing out of your nose when I bash it in. Be certain of your death here and now.
And it's just a tank. I would have liked to have another mech-on-mech fight with Richard in a bigger and better mech, but not like this. The tank is just a rehash of all of the other tanks we faced. The second phase transforms into the earlier spider boss in New York City, so nothing special there either. Of course, you can strafe around him and be fine except for the lock-on missiles that you should have a machine gun out for. Or you could go up a floor and use the cover for a much safer approach. I believe a much better approach to this level without changing a whole lot is to change the space station to a giant orbital weapon aimed at America. This would allow the timer to stay, and to stop it we would need to blow up the satellite, such as by causing a certain percentage of destruction within the level. Then Richard comes out in a new Metal Gear and we fight. Even though the level isn't that good, we're still treated to one of the best cutscenes in the game.
Jody, who am I? I'm the president. I always make the impossible possible, and I'm gonna keep on doing so.
Michael?
Richard, it was your methods that were flawed. Our love for America won't change. Richard!
This is one eternal flame with your justice!
Mr. President? Come on, Mr. President!
No problem. I'm coming home, Jody. Tomorrow's gonna be another busy day at the White House.
No, I did not edit Richard's line. With freedom brought back to America, we listened to the President of the United States of America speech.
My fellow Americans, good morning. As Americans, we love freedom. But true freedom isn't a given like the air we breathe or the water we drink. About 240 years ago, our forefathers fought greatly, giving their blood, sweat, and tears. And in the end, they won our freedom. And we must never forget this. If anything appears that threatens our belief in this freedom, we will oppose it. We will crush it. In fighting to gain our freedom, we need no reasons. We require no just cause or flowery words. In order to protect our neighbors who love freedom and this faith in freedom, we continue to believe in our own justice. We won't abandon any battles. And the reason is because we are all citizens of the United States of America. And as long as you all will allow it, I will be a vanguard leading this fight. And the reason is because I'm the President of this great United States of America.
It seems in the forecast that America was experiencing another Dust Bowl. Hey, since everyone knows without a doubt that Metal Wolf was actually the president and the coup leader was the vice president, does the president's name get cleared of the destruction across America that he caused? Does he get cleared of all the slander directed at him from the DNN? Yes, because he pardons himself, because he is the president of the United States of America.
And I'm gonna keep on doing so.
This wild ride will last you about 5 to 6 hours with some new game modes unlocked afterwards. There are 2 of them, one of which is Fever, where you get infinite ammo. It's pretty self-explanatory, but not really that game-changing since ammo was not much of an issue unless you're using like a multi-missile weapon. The other mode is Hell, where enemies do 1.5 times more damage and health. The Hell mode doesn't significantly change enough to feel different from the regular mode. You won't have to innovate how you play, you'll only need to have some good enough firepower to make fights not drag on longer than they need to be. However, there are some outliers. The original difficulty spikes, the 3 Robo Cowboys, the Spire Boss, the Tank Boss, and Richard Hawk, now require your attention. For the Robo Cowboys, it's the same thing except their stun-locking missiles are deadlier. They go down pretty easily, so just have a good enough offense and you'll be fine. The spider boss, you can still strafe around, it just takes a bit longer due to its larger health. You still have to watch out for its laser, as it's now guaranteed to kill you in one hit, while in the regular mode you could get lucky and scrape by. The tank is now even more of a damage check, and you might actually see the cutscene where the tank gets too close to the Statue of Liberty. The biggest change though is Richard Hawk in Las Vegas. There are times where you have full health, then in a second almost all of it disappears. It's difficult to tell what attack is doing so much damage. Looking back at my footage, I've seen the shotgun hit me once, then hit me again with some phantom strike unless he comboed me with his shotgun from the front and a grenade launcher from the back. However, I do have evidence that his rocket launcher shoots invisible rockets. Those rockets come out fast and take out most of your health before you know it. Although I did learn some things while fighting him. Energy weapons use a tiny bit of your energy along with its ammo, and that energy comes from the same resource as your dash. You can't use your energy weapons while you're out of charge, leaving you to either swap your weapon or wait until you cool down from overheating. It creates a nice trade-off of using energy weapons for some good damage or using a conventional weapon for less damage, but freely being able to use your dash. This fight is pretty much the only one where this would matter, but it's still nice that it's there. Also, Richard has the same problem as the 3 mech boys where they don't know what to do if you're far away enough. It's a tough fight, mainly because the numbers are against you and you might not even see what you got hit by. As per tradition with any video essay, Richard Hawk is the Dark Souls of Metal Wolf Chaos XD President of the United States of America edition. For completing any level on Hell Mode, you get a new suit model. They're purely cosmetic. One other thing that I discovered while going through Hell Mode is that the game may crash if you're frequently skipping cutscenes, so I hope that you feel lucky each time that you do. Metal Wolf Chaos is an enjoyable game to watch, but not to play as there isn't a whole lot to it. The gameplay leaves a lot to be desired, and it could have used at least a couple of more months of development in addition to the 8 to 11 months that it took. That extra time could have been allowed for audio issues to be fixed, as well as more additions and refinement to the gameplay. The remaster feels like a missed opportunity to fix some of the audio issues if possible, some of the bugs, and not to forget the crashing issue on Alcatraz. Although those original voice lines may be lost to time. I understand why they didn't add more to the gameplay to stay faithful to the original, and frankly there's not much of a financial incentive for them to do so for such a cult classic game. They probably would have gotten backlash if they did. Despite all of that, it's good that Metal Wolf Chaos finally got its worldwide release as originally intended. I would recommend watching all the cutscenes or at least watch somebody else play it while skimming through the gameplay parts. If you really want to try it and experience it for yourself, despite that you probably watched this entire video and got spoiled on mostly everything, you could easily speed through the lows to get to the high octane goofiness. I still enjoyed my time, and if you're going to play it, then only buy it on sale. It's a memorable game, and it's not hard to see why it grew a following, even with no global localization until the remaster was released. It's just a goofy game where the goal is to have a fun time. If you're looking for other games with this sort of absurdity, Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance will do the job. Yakuza 0 through Kiwami 2 will too, but they're more based on reality and have more downtime compared to the others, unless magical hair and nanomachines become real. Thank you for watching.
It's over, Richard. Richard!